Before the name Dracula struck fear into the hearts of the world through horror novels and Hollywood fangs, it belonged to a real man, a prince, a warlord, a ruler so brutal, his enemies whispered his name with trembling lips. Vlad III, more infamously known as Vlad the Impaler. This is the untold truth of the real Dracula, a tale soaked in blood, tangled in legend, and twisted into a myth that would haunt humanity for centuries. But to find the man behind the monster, we must journey back to the heart of 15th century Eastern Europe, a place on the edge of Christianity and the Islamic world, a frontier where survival was earned not by diplomacy, but by terror. Vlad was born in 1431 in the fortress town of Sighisoara in Transylvania, modern-day Romania. His father Vlad II bore the title Dracul, which meant dragon, a nod to his membership in the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric brotherhood sworn to defend Christianity against the Ottoman Turks. But in the Romanian tongue, Dracul also held another meaning, the devil. Thus, young Vlad became known as Dracula, the son of the dragon, or son of the devil. As a child, his life was anything but noble. When he was just 11, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were taken hostage by the Ottomans, part of a political bargain made by their father to secure Wallachia's loyalty. In the heart of enemy territory, Vlad learned firsthand the sharp edges of betrayal and survival. He studied Ottoman customs, language, and warfare. He was beaten, humiliated, shaped by fear. But unlike his brother Radu, who softened into a favorite of the Sultan, Vlad grew darker, hardened, obsessed with revenge. When he was eventually released, his home was unrecognizable. His father had been assassinated, his elder brother buried alive. Wallachia, his homeland, was crawling with rivals, all vying for the throne. But Vlad was not the boy they remembered. He had returned, and he brought hell with him. He clawed his way to power in 1456, becoming Voivode of Wallachia, a war-torn principality caught between the ambitions of Hungary and the might of the Ottoman Empire. And he ruled not with love, but with fear. Vlad's preferred method of punishment was as shocking as it was effective impalement. Not a swift execution, but a horrific spectacle. Victims were skewered on massive wooden stakes, often driven through the body vertically, slowly, deliberately, while they were still alive. The stakes were then planted upright, turning fields into forests of the dying. This wasn't mere sadism. Vlad used fear as a weapon of war. When Ottoman envoys came to his court and refused to remove their turbans, citing religious custom, Vlad had the turbans nailed to their skulls. When he learned of theft or treason, entire villages were depopulated and their corpses left on display for miles. And when the mighty Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II invaded with a force of over 100,000 men, he found the road to Vlad's capital lined with over 20,000 impaled bodies, rotting, shrieking monuments to the price of conquest. The Sultan turned back. To many in Western Europe, Vlad became a hero, a bloody defender of Christendom. His cruelty was terrifying, yes, but effective. In a time of brutal warlords, he was simply the most merciless of them all. But to his enemies, especially the Ottomans and rival nobles, he was a devil in human form, and from that darkness, a legend was born. Rumors spread of his nightly feasts among the dead, of blood drained from his victims and sipped like wine, of prisoners forced to eat the flesh of the impaled, of dark rituals carried out by moonlight in the haunted forests of Wallachia. No proof of blood drinking ever surfaced, but the whispers would echo through the centuries. And nearly 400 years later, an Irish author named Bram Stoker would resurrect that name, Dracula, for a fictional monster that drank human blood and rose from the grave. Stoker never traveled to Transylvania, but he had read of Vlad the Impaler, stories translated from German pamphlets filled with tales of cannibalism, torture, and demonic cruelty. He took the name, the cruelty, the ominous castle in the Carpathians, and from it, he birthed a new legend, Count Dracula. But the real Dracula was no supernatural being. He was something far more terrifying, a man who turned terror into strategy. A ruler who traded morality for survival. A prince who became a legend not through immortality, but through fear. And yet, perhaps the myth and the man were never so different. The vampire and the voivode both lived by feeding on others. One drank blood to stay alive, the other spilled it, to stay in power. To this day, visitors still flock to Bran Castle, often called Dracula's Castle, though Vlad likely never lived there. They buy vampire souvenirs, take haunted tours, and revel in the supernatural mystery. But few understand the deeper horror, that sometimes history gives birth to monsters far worse than fiction ever could. because Vlad Dracula was real, and for those who faced him, hell was not beneath the earth. It stood on blood-soaked soil, surrounded by screaming stakes, and ruled by the man who would become known across the centuries as Dracula.